Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Of course, like and subscribe if you like my content. I have a slightly different series for you than my normal Liz Evans discusses a track meet. Today, we're going to discuss if track and field were about the marks. Right? That's the overarching idea, is generally that track and field is about just the marks, but I want to let you know that it's not exactly. There's some extra layers, and if you don't know what's happening, you wouldn't even know to look into it. So I'd like to start off by posing a question, one that a lot of people think they know, but the answer has changed over the years, and I want to describe what the answer is right now. Now, the question is, how does someone qualify for the Olympics? And I'd like to do that by discussing the women's high jump team selection for 2016, 2021, and 2024. And hopefully by the time that I've finished discussing this team selection, you'll understand why this is an important question to know the answer to, especially if you want to go to the Olympics. So starting with 2016, which, by the way, I'm going to be showing you a lot of screenshots. They all come from the Olympic Trials Results website. And then I don't know why those links aren't showing up with pictures, but I got all the World Athletics screenshots for the Olympic Games. So going into it, with 2016, we have, and I want to say I'm not doing this in a way to talk bad about other athletes or to talk bad about USATF or anything. I'm all about the numbers, and if I ever come across in a way that I'm, bad-mouthing people, that's not my intention. I have to bring up the names just so you can see the placings, so you can see the point I'm trying to make. So here in 2016, we have Lowe, McPherson, and Cunningham making it into the Olympic Games, and so that one is Rio. So leading into it, this is the USATF Olympic Trials. So you can see Lowe, Cunningham, and McPherson on the finals list. They went 1, 2, and 3. So in 2016, we sent places 1, 2, and 3 off to the Olympic Trials. Yeah, so I pulled the prelims list as well. So this has, about the 20 or so athletes that made it into the Olympic trials. And I was just showing that, yes, they all placed high enough to qualify for the finals out of prelims. Sorry about that. So moving on to the 2021 women's high jump team selection. We have the 3 people selected. We've got last names of Cunningham, McCoy, and Butts Townsend. And so same thing, we're going to look at how did they get here. So here's the finals. For the USA Olympic trial finals, we have Cunningham and McCoy, but you don't see Butts Townsend. So you actually have to go to the prelim list and see that she didn't make it into finals. She ended up placing 14th, so we've got Butts Townsend right here at 14th. So the 3 that we sent out of 2021 were first. Cunningham was first, McCoy was 4th, and then Townsend at 14th. So 1, 4, and 14. So it does start to bring up the question of how did 14 go over 1 through 13? How did 4 go over any of the other ones in spots 1, 2, and 3? So if we keep going, we're going to look at the 2024, which just happened this past summer. So at 2024 Olympics, oh, yeah, that's weird that it's popping stuff over. All right, so 2024 Olympics, we have only 2 names. The United States only sent 2 people to the Olympics. We've got Cunningham and we've got Glenn. So let's take a look at how they placed in the Olympic trials for the USA. So they placed 2 and 3, and we only sent 2. 2 total. So why did we not send number 1, right? So 2016, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that works out. 2021, 1, 4, 14. And then here we have 2 and 3. So I'd have to say it's not exactly the most straightforward of how do you get in the Olympics if you could place 14th and go, if you could place first and not go. So it brings up the question of, how does someone qualify for the Olympics? One thing that I'd like to point out is right here, these two have Olympic standard next to them, and Charity Huffnagel does not have Olympic standard next to him. So what we're gonna do next is see what that means. So we've got to still focus on this question of how does someone qualify for the Olympics? And if it were only about the marks, it would be fine. But we have to talk about the Olympic standard. So the Olympic standard is actually 1.97 meters for this quad anyway, right? So the 2024 quad, the Olympic standard was 197. That's what they like to call every 4 years that leads up to the Olympics. It's fine. So let's take a look to see what this 197 looks like in terms of athlete count. So in the world for each year, and I know it cuts off at 2004, but I did 25 years, so there's at least 5 years below that, but it's hard to see. So this is the number of athletes per year that got that standard. And I'd like to say numbers are super fun for me to look at. And especially whenever we start adding this aspect in here too, it's we've got the field size set to be 32 because that is the field size for the women's high jump. We've got the number of athletes with the standard, and you'll see that we're never over 100%. So we've got numbers in the 20s, the 30s, 47 looks to be about the highest. 56 back in 2008. So again, numbers are super fun for me. Let's look at a chart. This might help it make sense a little quicker. So this is just athletes with the standard, and the bottom is the year. So in 2020, there were maybe 6, 7 athletes with the standard. 2024, there was 14, so we're just one below the 15 line. Back in 2008, there must have been some higher numbers before that, but here back in 2008, right, we had a bit of a higher blip. That was the 56 or 58% or not, whatnot. Maybe it was 52. Regardless, this is the athlete count basically as a percentage of the field size. So what percentage of the field is actually making the Olympic standard? And here you can see, for the most part, we're seeing numbers in the 20s, and kind of the higher marks are just below 50, so 45. A lot of the data is between 20 and 45% over the last 15 years. And to show that not all events are alike, I popped in one other event, including the women's 100, and I used their standard, and I'm pretty sure I hope I didn't typo their standard. Anyway, so looking through their standard, right, you can see 15 to 20 years ago, 25 years ago or so, in that range, they only had about 10% of the people that had that standard, but it's been increasing since. And so recently they've had right about 50% of their field getting the standard. Now they have a different field size, I'm pretty sure, than the women's high jump. I think their field size is around 50. Actually, sorry, this is not percent. Percent's down here. Their field size is 50, approximately, maybe 55. So I take back everything I just said. Right here, they're right near almost 100%, because that 50, 55, kind of in that range, these numbers are right near their maximum field size. And so recently, they've been nearing 100%, which means there's only maybe 5 athletes that get in that don't have the Olympic standard. But previously, we've got right about 50% of their field with the standard. So again, not every event is the same. I just wanted to bring one other event up here so you can see that it's not every event. So one thing I would like to present is the question of how are the Olympic standards set? Like, why are they what they are, I guess. So my thoughts are, let's list out the standards and see what is standard about the standards. So I've also listed off what the world records are, because I'm thinking like, okay, let's try to normalize this. If all of the Olympic standards are set off of the world records, like a certain percentage of the world record, then that would clear up some ambiguity, right? So finding the percentage that the standard is of the world record, well, again, I know numbers are not the most fun to look at, but we have basically a percent over here on this left side. So the bottom is 80%, 0.8 is 80%. Up here, 0.96, that is 96%. So each event, I'm showing you what percentage the standard is per their world record. So over here in basically all of the running events, we've got the lowest one sitting about 92, and its highest one sitting about maybe 95, 94 and some change. Right? And then in the women's high jump, it's set to be right about in the highest range, just slightly over 94%. And the lowest in the jumps is right about maybe 91%, right? You follow that through over here, it's sitting about halfway in between, so that's 91%. But then the other field events, we've got all of the throws, all four of the throws are not in the same range as the rest of the events. Here we've got these two throws, the hammer throw and the javelin, I believe, sitting right about 88 to 89%. And then the women's shot put and the women's discus throw sitting right about 83 to 84% of their world record. So to me, the Olympic standards cannot be set off of the world records. There's no way, right? It would be almost identical within a little bit, but you can't say 96% of the world record and something else that is 83% of the world record. That's too much of a span to say that, yes, Olympic standards are set off of world records. So I did some digging, and what I found is actually this article from World Athletics. It's on their press releases. It's qualification system published for Paris 2024 Olympic Games. And in this article, right, I don't want to read the whole thing to you because there's only one paragraph that has information, and it's this one. This is the paragraph that I want to read to you, but it's small, so I blew up the text, I blew it up, and here we have the qualification system will be based on a dual pathway of qualification with 50% of the athletes qualifying through entry standards and the remaining 50% qualifying through world rankings. I'm like, well, that's interesting, but there's also this orange text, right? That's actually a link, and it sends you to a PDF. And I found that in that PDF, it talks about the qualification process right here. I don't remember exactly what page it is on there, but it talks about the qualification process. So I'm like, well, that's what I need to know. So I pulled the bigger text on the bottom is just retyping this first bullet point. And then on the next slide, I'll show you what the smaller text, the second bullet point. I'll show you what that one is. So to start, I'll read to you what the first bullet point is within the qualification process. So an athlete can qualify in one of two ways. One, by achieving the entry standard within the qualification period outlined below. The entry standards approved by World Athletics Council in November 2022 have been determined in order to target the qualification of approximately 50% of the athletes. For avoidance of doubt, with for the avoidance of doubt, any athlete achieving the entry standard will be deemed qualified regardless of them being within the 50%, and I should probably say or not instead of not. I'll go ahead and fix that. Within being 50% or not. Actually, I don't know if so the dual pathway, right? So that lines up with this, saying that 50% of the athletes qualifying through the entry standards. And then I'm pretty sure we're going to see this next part, and the remaining 50% qualifying through world rankings. So that first bullet point lines up with the first part of that statement. Now going to the second bullet point, we have number 2. The remaining qualification places will be allocated on the basis of the World Athletics World Rankings within the ranking period. So let's go out on a limb here and say the top 50% of athletes that get the Olympic standard, it would be crazy to think that they're not also going to have a great world ranking. So the top 50% are already in the meet, right? So it's a bit of a facade to claim that there's an actual Olympic standard whenever the top 50% are in anyway, right? The bottom 50%, right, that bubble of like, are you getting in? Are you not getting in? That bubble is based off of the world rankings, right? That's what it says, allocated on the basis of the world rankings. So the bottom 50%, they don't care about the Olympic standard. What they care about is their world ranking, because that's the only surefire way of getting into this meet is by their world rankings. That's how number 14 got in over 1 through 13, is that her world rankings were lifted so much higher than any of the other previous placing athletes. And that's also how number 1 on 2024's year didn't make it in, is because her world rankings were much lower. So that is what I'm trying to say your answer is how you get into the Olympics. So how does someone qualify for the Olympics? Well, the only way of getting in is with your world rankings. So that's actually what I'm going to talk about next in this little mini series of If Only It Were About the Marks. I'm going to try to outline to you why I find this an interesting topic that everyone needs to know about, and saying the quiet part out loud. That's what the next 2 episodes are going to be about, is sharing with you what I found when I've dived into that data. I am, a math major and engineer type, so it's like I love numbers. This is very interesting to me, so whenever I have a crossover between that and track and field, it's just like, oh, this is wonderful. So I'm very hopeful that I'm able to explain things at a level that literally anyone can take advantage of, right? That can understand. I don't like how track and field at this level is not exactly the most transparent, and that you have to read between the lines. And I've taken the time to read between the lines, so I'm about to tell you what I found when I read between the lines. All right, guys. Episode 2 is going to be coming out soon, and it's going to be completely about the World Athletics ranking system. If you want to make it in the Olympics, you had better understand this process. And until then, I'll see you. Bye.